In 1973, I graduated from the prestigious Northwestern University Dental School and opened a dental practice in Honesdale, a town of less than 5,000 people located in the extreme northeast corner of Pennsylvania. I looked forward to a successful practice because Honesdale was the hometown of my wife, and her family was well known by almost everyone. I mean, come on. I mean, I thought myself as an excellent dentist who could, I could solve any problem that, patients had. Well, I found out that I was wrong, and I realized that most of the problems the patient had, that they came in for were a heck of a lot more complex than I was trained to do. So if I wanted a thriving practice, I needed advanced training. I mean, come on here, Well, New York City and Philadelphia offered advanced training. They were so damn far that I would have to close the office when I wanted to attend. And that didn't strike me as being a lot of fun. So anyway, I considered a lot of different ways to solve the problem. And I'll call it a brilliant solution in quotes. It made the most sense at the time anyway. Well, get a private pilot's license and fly yourself. Well, it was easy to find a CFI, a certified flight instructor who was going to teach me, and, the lessons began. There's a 20-hour learning phase where you learn all the rules and regulations and all that boring stuff, but necessary, And after that, when the flight lesson started, man, that was exciting. Jesus, I loved that stuff. We were zooming around in the sky. Of course, he was teaching me, different maneuvers, flying around a point, how to land, how to take off, and all that sort of stuff. And, but, I was pretending I was a fighter pilot sometimes, and looking for enemy aircraft all over the place. Well, at the end of the required 20 hours of in-flight training, I knew solo flight would be required, but I figured, stuffed as my head was, I guess, with my own self, that, I thought it'd be a piece of cake. Well, on November 12th, 1976, we taxied to the end of the runway as usual. And, I was just looking for the normal, okay to take off from my CFI. But he surprised me. He just jumped out of the plane. He looked at me and said, "Today's the day. Make 3 takeoffs and landings. I'll be waiting." Slammed the door shut, locked it, and walked away. So now, Mr. Hotshot Pilot, what's going to happen now? Well, I mean, I figured, this was a win. Wait a minute. There's no draw here. There's no tie. You either complete the requirement or you crash in a burning ball of fire. And, Jesus, the thoughts that race through your head at a time like that, holy crap. You think, I'm going to die. What a stupid choice. Why did I even start this? And, anyway, I started to laugh because I thought, I better make a decision here or I'm going to run out of gas, and then I'm going to feel really stupid. Well, all of a sudden I just said, I made my choice. I said, to push the throttle in, the way we went. And so the engine, went to full power and we started to roll down the runway. Well, we started going faster and faster, and all of a sudden I reached that point, no return. You either pull back on the yoke and take off, or you kill the engine, slam on the brakes, and pray to God you can stop before the end of the runway. Well, for me, there was only one choice. I pulled on the yoke and remember very distinctly that thought in my mind is, I could do this. I mean, climb to 1,000 feet, circle the airport. What could be more simple than this? So there were other possibilities, of course, wild ones. I mean, come on, crashing into an alien spaceship or a wing falling off. No, there's no wing going to fall off. The calm day, there wasn't any lightning or any of that stuff. So when I got up to 1,000 feet, I leveled off, and, the only thing I was thinking about was getting back on Earth, landing successfully. So as I landed for the third time, I taxied over to the parking spot, and I was just jacked, man. I was like I was like so excited. I had actually completed my first solo flight. So I parked the plane and jumped out, and my CFI gave me a big hug, of course. And then he grabs my shirt tail, as was the custom, and he cuts off the shirt tail and gave it to me as a memento of my first solo flight. Well, I can tell you that, that wasn't all to the story, because, while, it was a great victory and I was proud of myself, I learned a much more important lesson, which was after, several fights and testing out my brilliant theory, I discovered that there was no time saved at all. I mean, when I drove, I left the house, checked in the hotel, took the course, and drove home. Flying, on the other hand, there was a hell of a lot more steps, and the time of the flight was greatly affected by the wind. So much so that it really, a lot of times it was in your face, and it took longer than you thought. Well, after several flights, when I tested out that theory, the times were about equal. I mean, there was just no benefit from flying. The takeaway here, and the biggest lesson of all, is that when faced with an obstacle or problem that you have to solve, be sure to thoroughly research all the possible solutions. I mean, your solution may have unintended consequences or even collateral damage. I failed to do this, and I ended up spending a hell of a lot more money than I wished I had at the time. The end of the story really is that I was able to get this, take this advanced training in another way, and my practice, as I learned more and more, my practice grew by leaps and bounds.